Today we're going to be looking at manoeuvring and warning signals, which is Rule 34. We can jump straight into the first paragraph. Vessels are in sight of one another, a power-driven vessel underway, when manoeuvring is authorised or required by these rules, shall indicate that manoeuvre by the following signals on her whistle. So what are the standout points? Of course, you've got to be in sight of one another. It applies to power-driven vessels underway, and your manoeuvring is authorised or required by these rules. So this isn't just if you're wanting to turn to starboard as part of your passage plan. And then you shall indicate that manoeuvre, so you have to make these whistle signals. 1 short blast means you're altering to starboard, 2 short blasts means you're altering to port, and 3 short blasts means you're operating astern propulsion. Now of course, if you're familiar with flags, you'll know these tie in with Echo, India and Sierra. And the Morse for these is 1, 2 and 3 small dits respectively. The single letter flag meaning of course ties in with the rules as well. So Echo actually means I'm altering my course to starboard. If we take a look at this situation now, we can see that the red vessel is approaching the blue vessel and it's a crossing situation. The red vessel has got to alter her course to starboard, so she's going to indicate that manoeuvre by sounding 1 short blast on her whistle and then making a bold alteration of course to starboard. And then in this situation we've got the power-driven vessel approaching a sailing vessel, and this time she's actually going to alter course to port so that she can pass upwind of the sailing vessel, and she's going to indicate that manoeuvre by 2 short blasts on her whistle. Paragraph B goes on to say you can supplement those whistle signals with light signals and they carry the same meanings. So 1 flash also means altering to starboard, 2 flashes to port and 3 flashes astern. It says the duration needs to be about a second, interval between flashes about 1 second, and interval between successive signals not less than 10 seconds. And this all ties in with the definition of 1 short blast, which is a blast of about 1 second's duration. Paragraph C then goes on to say, if you're in a narrow channel or fairway. And this rule actually coincides with Rule 9, which we've already covered. So what this is saying is that if you're intending to overtake somebody and the other vessel's got to take action, you're going to make your intentions clear by sounding either 2 prolonged blasts followed by 1 short blast to mean I intend to overtake you on your starboard side, 2 prolonged blasts followed by 2 short blasts to mean I intend to overtake you on your port side. And then the vessel to be overtaken is going to sound Morse Charlie, which is 1 prolonged, 1 short, 1 prolonged, 1 short blast. Of course, for a more thorough explanation of this, I'm going to link up to Rule 9. I've got a video on that one, so you can go and check that out, and that will cover this part of Rule 34 in a lot more detail with a good example. Paragraph D is the one that talks about what you do if you're unsure of what's happening. When vessels in sight of one another are approaching each other, and from any cause either vessel fails to understand the intentions or actions of the other, or is in doubt whether sufficient action is being taken by the other to avoid collision, the vessel in doubt shall immediately indicate such doubt by giving at least 5 short and rapid blasts on the whistle. Such signal may be supplemented by a light signal of at least 5 short and rapid flashes. So you basically just sound this whenever you're unsure of what's going on. If you hear it, it means there's a vessel approaching you and they've got no idea what you're doing. Paragraph E. A vessel nearing a bend or an area of a channel or fairway where other vessels may be obscured by an intervening obstruction shall sound 1 prolonged blast. Such signal shall be answered with a prolonged blast by an approaching vessel that may be within hearing around the bend or behind the intervening obstruction. So let's take a look at this chart. I don't know the area at all, so we're going to assume there's a lot of high-rise buildings so nobody can see around any of the turns. You can see the red vessel is proceeding down this channel, and as they're nearing the bend, they're going to sound 1 prolonged blast because they can't see what's around the corner. If there's no other vessel there, they don't hear a reply, so they can proceed round knowing that it should be clear. If, however, there's this other vessel approaching, as soon as they hear that signal from the red vessel, they're going to reply with their own prolonged blast. Both vessels now know that there is vessels approaching round the bend that are out of visible range. Finally, paragraph F. If whistles are fitted on a vessel at a distance apart of more than 100 metres, only one whistle shall be used for giving manoeuvring and warning signals. The reason for this is just because of the speed of sound. If the whistles are more than 100 meters apart, another vessel might well hear that as two separate whistles and interpret it as two separate vessels. To avoid that confusion, if you've got two whistles more than 100 meters apart, you're only allowed to sound one. Hopefully you found the information today useful. Until next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye. Today we're looking at Rule 35, which is sound signals in restricted visibility. It starts off by saying it applies in or near an area of restricted visibility, whether by day or night. And you need to use the signals prescribed in this rule as follows. Power-driven vessel making way through the water shall sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes, one prolonged blast. And by power-driven vessel we literally mean any vessel propelled by machinery. That can even include a sailing vessel if it's running its engines. They need to continue that until they stop, because a power-driven vessel underway but stopped and making no way through the water shall sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes, 2 prolonged blasts, with an interval of about 2 seconds between them. So these are those same vessels. As soon as they've stopped in the water, they've got to change their sound signal. Then the rest of the vessels, so we're talking not under command, restricted in ability to manoeuvre, constrained by draft, sailing vessel, engaged in fishing, engaged in towing or pushing another vessel, shall, instead of those two previous sets of signals, sound at intervals of not more than 2 minutes, 3 blasts in succession, 1 prolonged, followed by 2 short blasts. And this is the same as the Morse delta, which means I am manoeuvring with difficulty. And then we go on to paragraph D, which says a vessel engaged in fishing when at anchor, and a vessel restricted in ability to manoeuvre when carrying out her work at anchor, shall, instead of the signals prescribed in paragraph G, which we're going to see shortly, these are anchor signals, shall sound the signals prescribed in paragraph C. So the ones that we just talked about, if you're fishing at anchor or carrying out your work at anchor, you've got to still be sounding this Morse delta, 1 prolonged followed by 2 short blasts. Paragraph D, a vessel towed, or if more than one vessel is towed, the last vessel of the tow, if manned, shall at intervals of not more than 2 minutes sound 4 blasts in succession, namely 1 prolonged followed by 3 short blasts. When practicable, this signal shall be made immediately after the signal made by the towing vessel. So you can see these vessels here. Of course, the towing vessel is going to sound 1 prolonged followed by 2 short blasts. And then immediately following that, the vessel that's towed is going to sound 1 prolonged followed by 3 short blasts. Paragraph F also applies here. When a pushing vessel and a vessel being pushed ahead are rigidly connected in a composite unit, they shall be regarded as a power-driven vessel, and shall give the signals prescribed in paragraphs A or B. So we're just talking about 1 or 2 prolonged blasts at intervals of less than 2 minutes. Paragraph G goes on to talk about vessels at anchor. So at intervals not more than 1 minute, so we're 1 minute now, you need to ring the bell rapidly for about 5 seconds. In a vessel of 100 meters or more in length, the bell shall be sounded in the fore part of the vessel, and immediately after the ringing of the bell, the gong shall be sounded rapidly for about 5 seconds in the after part of the vessel. A vessel at anchor may in addition sound 3 blasts in succession, namely 1 short, 1 prolonged and 1 short blast, and this is to give warning of her position and of the possibility of collision to an approaching vessel. Paragraph H, a vessel aground shall give the bell signal and, if required, the gong signal prescribed in paragraph G. So the anchor signal, so the gong signal is just if you're long enough. And in addition, you've got to give 3 separate and distinct strokes on the bell, immediately before and after the rapid ringing of the bell. A vessel aground may in addition sound an appropriate whistle signal. So you've got the entire Morse alphabet that you can choose from, and you can choose whichever one is most appropriate. A good one might be, you are running into danger. Paragraph I, a vessel of 12 meters or more, but less than 20, so basically if you're between 12 and 20 meters, you shall not be obliged to give the bell signals prescribed in paragraph G and H of this rule. However, if you don't, you shall make some other efficient sound signal at intervals of not more than 2 minutes. So we're just talking about anchored vessels and vessels aground. Paragraph J, vessel of less than 12 meters in length shall not be obliged to give the above mentioned signals, but if she does not, she shall make some other efficient sound signal at intervals of not more than 2 minutes. And finally, paragraph K. A pilot vessel engaged on pilotage duty may, in addition to the signals prescribed in paragraph A or B or G of this rule, so we're talking about underway, stopped and not making any way, and if she's at anchor, she can sound this identity signal, which corresponds with the hotel flag, which is the pilot flag, and it's simply 4 short blasts. These of course are just indicating that you've got a pilot on board. And that brings us to the end of Rule 35. Hopefully you found the information interesting. Until next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye.